Please excuse me 1 minute. Good evening, everyone. Am I audible?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm putting it on full screen. So, greetings, everyone. A very good evening to everyone. This is Vinyasa from CSA. I'll be your moderator for the evening. And as you all can see, today we are organizing a webinar on farmer producer organizations, focusing more on opportunities and challenges. In that, we'll be covering overview of the FPO and which will be taken by Dr. G.V. Ramanjanelu. He's Executive Director for Center for Sustainable Agriculture, and followed by topic on different support schemes that an FPO should have, or if anyone wants to run an FPO, what kind of support schemes are available? Is that what we'll be talking about? Briefly, I would like to tell you about Grameen Academy. So basically, we have a Google app and you can check this. Grameen Academy is an initiative by Center for Sustainable Agriculture, and it is to create a learning ecosystem where we focus on building skills, knowledge, and different attitudes of rural youth, rural women, and even others who would like to learn from different practitioners and go and take these teaching forwards as a resource person or work on their employment and entrepreneur journey that they want to do. And we are mainly focusing on rural livelihood. As you can see, we focus on different types of courses, online courses, academic courses like building courses for agricultural colleges or universities and even schools, on-field courses, on-campus courses, and digital farm schools. Digital farm schools is nothing but if in a village, there are many people who want to learn, but they cannot travel. Only thing that they need is a television or a screen and a place where they have a good internet connection. And anyone who can offer their knowledge, they can do through that online service. This, you can visit our website, grameenacademy.in/courses, where you can find our current courses that we have. Some of them are free, some of them are paid, and we will be introducing more. What topics we are going to cover will be these under different schools of topics, like agroecology school. In this, all these topics are there: organic farming, seed production, etc. Livelihood school, rural business school. The webinar which we are going to do today comes under rural business school, focusing on FPOs, farmer producer organizations, public policy, and urban ecology schools also. Now, there's a very famous quote which says sharing is caring. So we are trying to implement the same thing. We don't want to keep teach and preaching everyone. What we aim is different people can come together, different partners can come together. It can be an individual, it can be an organization or an institution. You bring your expertise, we will bring our expertise, and we'll work together, collaborate together, and take the teachings forward. So if any one of you is interested to offer a course, please go to our website, offer a course, and you can register yourself and we can partner together. And lastly, coming soon, on 1st October, we will be having the webinar on dragon fruit cultivation, followed by the same course, on-field course. Date will be declaring soon, and the location also. We will also be doing weekly webinars on Fridays, and we can actually take your opinion, if not Fridays, which other day and what timing. We'll be doing training courses also. It can be monthly or alternate months. And we are also planning to go for annual subscription. You can pay a nominal amount and take 2, 3, or 3, 4 courses together. We will be announcing that soon. So thank you for bearing with me, and without further ado, I would request our first speaker, Dr. Ramu, to enlighten everyone about overview of farmer producer organization. And we'll be followed with clarification on this particular topic, and then that will be for 10 minutes, and we'll go to the next session. Thank you.
Thank you, Vinyasa. I hope I'm audible and my slides are visible.
Yes, sir.
I'll be talking about how we can make farmer producer organizations viable, and what is the learning we have till now on running the farmer producer organizations. And then followed by Rambabu will be talking about what are the schemes available which can be availed from the government side. So what are the support schemes which are available? So that would be from the Rambabu. And in terms of farmers cooperatives and farmer producer organizations, India is one of the first country to experiment with cooperatives. Right from the Gandhiji days, we had cooperatives in India. And one of the major major success, and then very popular one, is Amul. You might have seen Anand Milk Producers Union Limited, which has now spread across the country. And while milk producers cooperatives were very successful, agriculture cooperatives couldn't become very successful. And the primary agriculture credit cooperative societies, which began across the country in 60s, rather later days, it ended up with political interventions, and then they couldn't go forward. And then of late, there is a new fever in terms of bringing in more collectives and then farmer producer organizations, particularly learning from the women self-help groups movement, how we can organize small producers together, and so that we can gain the strength of the collective. So that was the new learnings which came up with the success of women self-help groups. And based on that, actually the FPOs systems were built, and then now with farm producer organizations coming in, it's becoming more and more important to solve the problems which farming is facing today. India, as you all know, we have nearly about 83% small and marginal farmers who has about 1 hectare of land, so 2 acres. And the produce from 1 hectare of land is not good enough for them to market. So they can't have a bargaining power in the market, and they are subjected to all kinds of vagaries of the market. And also in terms of individually planning their own production is also very, very difficult. So collectivization would be the best way going forward. So it brings in the economic benefits and ecological benefits and also social good. So if you look at from the economic benefits, it reduces by collectivization, you can reduce the transaction costs. So either by buying the inputs together or selling the output together. So you can actually reduce your transaction costs, and we can achieve the economies of scale, because in a village, if there are 100 farmers individually going and buying inputs or individually going and selling in the market is very difficult. And if they collectivize, 100 farmers can put the produce together and then bargain and get a better price. And also to establish any processing facilities, value addition, etc., also can become much easier. Even to store whatever value addition can be done, it would be much, much easier if collectivization can happen. And collectivization also brings in easy way of delivering public good, even which is non-commodity goods. Say farmers getting access to various support services from the government. So whether it is about extension service, whether it is about access to entitlements, these all can become much easier if we can collectivize the farmers. And like I mentioned, one of the major crises in Indian agriculture is the last mile delivery of services. Today, extension reach is hardly 20-30%. And credit reach is 30%, insurance reach is 30%, 70% of the people do not have access to any of the support services from the government. And the access to markets, organized markets, is much lower. It would be less than 5%. So given that, it would be better if we can improvise the system so that collectives can deliver the support services for the farmers. At the same time, one of the major bottleneck in marketing is the first mile aggregation, because there are a number of small and marginal farmers. So aggregating the produce and grading and then becomes very, very difficult. So the first mile aggregation is very expensive and also time consuming process. So these two can be achieved if collectives can come into picture. And also in terms of complying with new legislations becomes much easier. Once they are FPOs, then one license is sufficient, and then it's much easier to get into the markets. Similarly, on the ecological front, individual small farmers, if you look at the total planning, becomes very difficult. And also if they want to convert into more sustainable models of production, it becomes extremely difficult. When they are collectives, it becomes much easier, because collective action brings in, restores the ecosystem far better. And also restoring biodiversity, conserving the soil, natural resources at a landscape level, it becomes much easier by a collective action. So if like watersheds, like the forest management, or if you look at the seed conservation, so all these activities becomes much easier. Even on pest management, it becomes much easier if you have a collective action. And by collectivizing, with this we can also reach out to a larger scale. And social good is another very important dimension of collectivization which we need to look at, because like in the organizations, when people come together in a team, each one brings in their own strength. So all need not have all the strengths, all skills, but if people come together, they can actually share knowledge, learnings, and also skills. So that can make it more efficient. Rather than every farmer learning every skill. Many farmers may not be good at finance management. Many may not be good in bargaining with markets. Many may not have actually ability to plan. But when they are collectivized, all these can become much easier. And by cooperation, it also becomes much easier in terms of depending on the local knowledge. So people, they can solve the problems because they understand the local situations better. And also the decision making, being part of the decision making improves their own action and credibility. So that's a major social good which cooperatives can bring in. So Amul, we have seen, and then many examples across the country, we have seen that these cooperatives will help. And so what are the farmer producer organizations? What do we call as farmer producer organization? Producer organization, basically it's a legal entity formed by the primary producers who are farmers, milk producers, fishermen, weavers, rural artisans, craftsmen, basically the people who are producing it. They can form into a producer's company or a cooperative society, and any other legal form. There are a number of legal forms in this country. So they can form into any of the legal entity, and they share benefits and profits among the members. So that's a core objective of the primary producer, or the FPO, farmer producer organizations. And we can also form secondary producer organizations where FPOs, cooperatives can become members of a federation. So those federations play an important role in collectivizing the collectives. And we have seen the biggest success with women self-help groups because of the building collectives of the collectives. So there are village organizations which are federated into Mandal Samakyas, and then Mandal Samakyas, which are block level organizations, and then block level organizations are again federated at the district level. So that kind of federations certainly help. So farm producer organizations can be formed like that. And in India, we have several key promoting organizations. This is essentially the organizations which fund formation of farmer producer organizations and then provide initial support. So NABARD is the major organization, National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development, SFAC, Small Farmer Agribusiness Consortium, NCDC, National Cooperative Development Corporation, NAFED, which is the National Agriculture Cooperative Marketing Federation of India, NRLM, which is the National Rural Livelihoods Mission, apart from the departments of agriculture, horticulture, animal husbandry across the states. So all these are now into promoting farmer producer organizations. But where do we stand? So the data which is available from March 2009 talks about India has 7,374 farmer producer organizations registered by March 2019, and probably another 1,000 might have been added in the last 1 year. And in these 7,374, there are about 4.3 million shareholders, but they are not evenly distributed across the country. Maharashtra alone accounts for more than 1/4 of all producer companies in India. And the top 4 states are Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Madhya Pradesh, which have about 50% of the FPOs. And while all these FPOs together, so the 7,374 FPOs together has a paid up capital of 860 crores, just 100 companies have about 587 crores in this. And so it's about just 100 companies have 2/3 of the total paid up capital. And there are 189 companies which have 1,000 rupees or less paid up capital. So that shows that all are not running in the same pace. So it's not just about registration, but it's about the maintenance of it. So how do we move towards more viable farm producer organizations is something which is very important challenge. And then that's what we are going to discuss today. And 86% of the active producer organizations in India are very, very small, and they have less than 10 lakh paid up capital, and only 2.6% of the active companies have a paid up capital of more than 25 lakhs. So you can imagine if they have a paid up capital of less than 10 lakhs, the kind of money they can mobilize. And then once the money which they can mobilize as the working capital is lower, or a fixed capital is lower, the quantum of business they can do is also lower. So that's the main challenge which they have. So today we will talk about how do we make them viable and what are the learnings we have till now. And then we'll also look at what are the schemes which are available to support these things. So the key challenge is the capital. Since, like I mentioned earlier, India has a large number of small and marginal farmers, the capital which can be mobilized by themselves is very little. And by investing just 1,000 rupees or 2,000 rupees share capital, farmer expecting that they can FPO can buy the entire produce is very difficult. And when the capital is very lower, access to loans, etc., becomes very, very difficult. So access to capital is something which is very, very difficult for these FPOs. To address these challenges, some new initiatives have begun from the government side, but still access to capital is the major problem, because any business runs only if you have access to adequate capital. And because these are all small and marginal farmers and who lack the knowledge and skill in managing businesses. As you all know, today agriculture is in crisis because farmers are unable to take right choices and right decisions about their nearly about 1 lakh or 2 lakh rupees business per year. So their entire farming of 1 or 2 acres, if you take, it would be about a turnover of about 1.5 to 2 lakh rupees. In which if they invest about 50,000 to 1 lakh rupees, they expect about 50,000 to 1 lakh rupees as the returns. But if you look at that, they are unable to make the right choice. So they're making wrong choice about the crops, wrong choice about the practices, and then they couldn't bargain in the market. So the skills and abilities are little. And now we are expecting them that they will come together and form into a cooperative or a farmer producer organization and manage about 1 crore rupees business or 10 crore rupees business, which becomes very difficult. So it takes long time to mature, but the support available is very short. So by the time you mobilize the farmers, projects will be over, and then building their skills and knowledge becomes extremely difficult. Again, lack of infrastructure. Warehouses, we don't have enough of adequate warehousing facility, and human resources, like while we talk about thousands and thousands of FPOs being formed in this country, we don't have a single course in this country in any of these institutions which we have. So none of the public institutions have any course offered for building the skills, knowledge and skills of people to run an FPO. And expecting that an MBA graduate from IRMA or any of the IIMs or any of these MBA colleges will come and run these FPOs is also too far fetched. So we need to have courses which will be picking up rural youth and then train them to manage these FPOs. I think that is something which is very, very important. Similarly, in terms of governance of the FPOs, the farmers' investment is very low, so the ownership is low, and their own skills in management are low. So unless we build the skills of the people to manage well, it's not going to sustain. So it takes time to mature. I think that is something which is very, very critical we need to understand. Like I mentioned, from the government side, the support is very, very little, and farmers themselves are unable to invest. So given that situation, how we can manage the FPOs is a challenge. There are a lot of duplication of efforts. She's seen several organizations forming the farm producer organizations. So like in the women's self-help groups movement, there are a lot of overlaps which are happening. So when overlaps happen, so same department, different departments promote FPOs in the same area, so there will be a competition between them, and then they compete with each other rather than cooperate with each other. So when departments cannot cooperate with each other, expecting that the FPOs formed by them will cooperate with each other is far-fetched again. So that is something which also need to be understood. So now there is a new mechanism which was brought up. Still there is a lot of overlaps which are happening. So there's a competition between departments, there's a competition between NGOs, there's a competition between corporations to form these FPOs. So how they can come together in terms of farming them without duplication and then work together is something which is very, very important. There's a very weak support systems are available, like I mentioned about banking. There's no insurance facilities, there are no infrastructure facilities. So support systems are also very, very weak. And particular challenge is how do we identify farmer? In this country, we only have the land patta to identify as farmer. So obviously tenant farmers are never identified as farmers. And in states like Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, particularly where we have the nearly about 30% tenancy, it is becoming extremely difficult for the tenant farmers to find spaces in FPOs. So how do we address these things are also is very, very important. And like I mentioned, there are two forms of FPOs majorly which are now considered. One is a cooperative, another is a producer company. So cooperatives are registered through a state act. So these state acts in different states is formed in different years. So Andhra Pradesh, Telangana has 1954 Act, and there's a 59 Act in Karnataka. And at the national level, there is a multi-cooperative act, which is formed in 1959. So these are all different acts under which cooperatives can be formed. And this Cooperative Societies Act is a state level act. So when it is, except for the multi-state cooperative act, all others are state level acts. And whereas the Producer Companies Act is part of the Companies Act of 1956, which is amended in the 2013 again, and it's a national act. So the registration will be with the registrar of companies who are across the country. And in cooperatives, the area is restricted. The area of operation is restricted. You need to define what is the scope of the area. It could be a block, it could be a mandal, it could be obli, or it could be a district, but all this is within the state. Unless you register under a multi-state cooperative act, it's within the state. Whereas under the producer company, the operations could be across the country. So entire is open across the country, except Sikkim. I think farm producer organization can work across the country. And similarly, membership is open only to individuals, and other cooperatives and societies can also become members of these FPOs. And in producer companies also, any individual producer or a group or association or a group of institutions can become members of FPOs. So in that, not much change is there. And these FPOs can be formed by cooperatives and by the corporates or the NGOs or business houses. And with the producer cooperative, the relationship is only transaction based, so they can transact with them. They can support, they can buy some produce or supply some inputs, kind of. So it's only transaction based. Whereas in producer companies, the corporations or the NGOs who promoted them can also be part of the board of management. And of course, they will not have voting rights, but they can be part of the board of management so that they can guide them better. So that's what is the producer company says. And the shares are not tradable and transferable in cooperative. So if a member ceases to exist, and then they just leave, and then if somebody want to leave, they have to leave. So the share cannot be transferred or tradable. Whereas in producer company, they are not tradable, but they're transferable. And but the transfer will be limited to the members at a par value. So whatever is that day price, and then they can transfer to the other members if the other members are willing to buy. In voting rights, producer cooperatives have one person, one vote. But one of the major weaknesses of the producer cooperative acts across the country is that the registrar of cooperatives holds a veto power. So they can veto any decision of the producer cooperative. And in 1995, the United Andhra Pradesh came up with a legislation as a mutually aided cooperative societies act, which actually took away this power, and then the cooperatives are freed from the hands of the registrar cooperative. That made the system better, and that's what led to the success of women self-help groups movement in this state. Similarly, Bihar has amended its cooperative act. Whereas in producer companies, one person, but many other states have not amended it. Say, for example, Maharashtra still continues to hold the old cooperative act. Whereas producer company, one person, one vote is the principle. So irrespective of the share capital, one person, one vote is the basic principle. But those who are not having transactions with the company cannot vote. So absentee members will not have any voting rights. Similarly, if it is if the FPO is a federation and formed with the individual members and institutions together, so it's a hybrid model. There the voting rights are based on the transactions. So there's a different models of voting rights in the producer company. And these reserves, the financial reserves, producer cooperatives can create them only if there are profits. Whereas a producer company, it is mandatory to create reserves every year. And the role of registration authority is very significant in producer cooperative. Like I mentioned earlier, they can sit in the meetings, they can nullify the decisions, so they can ratify, and then they can do anything in the cooperative. They can even take over. We have seen in many areas, even last year, we have seen some of our cooperatives being influenced by the registrar of cooperative to change the entire board when there is and the other party won the election. So that kind of thing happens with the cooperatives. Whereas in the producer companies, this intervention is minimal and they cannot intervene and they cannot say anything in terms of governance. Administrative control, cooperative department has high control and they are highly patronaged and then they can interfere to any extent. Whereas, of course, this is not possible under mutually aided cooperative society, but still departments try to intervene. Whereas in the producer companies, board has the entire control and they can follow all, as long as they follow all the statutory requirements, they are not subjected to any pressure from the registrar of companies. And the borrowing power is restricted as per the bylaw. So producer cooperatives, whatever is written in the bylaw, that's a final rule of authority for them. Whereas in producer companies, borrowing power can be fixed through a special resolution in the general meeting. So every time they want to change, they can modify it. Dispute settlement mechanism in producer cooperatives, cooperative mechanism, whereas in producer companies by arbitration, they can actually go to court and get the settlement if they want to. And these cooperatives, like I mentioned, it could be having any of these livelihood portfolios. So while the women's self-help groups were largely about thrift and credit, accessing thrift and credit, the producer organizations are largely on the livelihood portfolios. It could be on crop production, livestock, input production, value addition, non-farm activities. So they could be of any of these livelihood activities or a mix of any of these things. So it could be small marginal farmers, single women, other vulnerable sections in the society. They can come together and they can form into either livelihood groups. If it is an organic and natural farming kind of thing, they can form into PGS groups or certification groups or any kind of commodity-based groups. So essentially, if the farmers farm into a smaller group and then the smaller groups can be unregistered groups. But if you have more small groups, homogeneous small groups, if they collectivize farming into a producer organization, it becomes much easier. And if all individuals becomes members of the producer organization, the voice of small will always be lost. So this kind of group-based approach will be better. And the main objectives of the farmer producer organizations would be in terms of strengthening the existing production systems, increasing the livelihood opportunities for their members. So it's not just about crop production, but other livelihood activities as well. And then improving the backward linkages by aggregating the services which are required by the farmers or any of these producers to get the support. So as a strategy, like I mentioned earlier, to mature, it takes about 4 to 5 years, at least 6 years plan if we can have. The first 2 years would be largely about incubation and early stage, where you identify, mobilize, build their capacities, legal registration, and then get licenses kind of thing. And the third and fourth year would be the implementation growing stage, where you draw a growth plan and then have market access and then regulatory requirements and then business management, learn about the business management. And the fifth and sixth year, you move on to product development. You can have exclusive products, you can build a brand, and plan for a business expansion and then get into partnerships kind of thing. Day one, probably all this is not possible everyone, but if somebody can do it, they can do. But as a growth plan, unless we have a kind of 4 to 5 years action plan, it becomes extremely difficult for FPOs to move into it. So what we try to do is to create a structure for these FPOs. There is a general structure available, but based on that, we try to create identify important players and then bring them together. So there is a governance role, there is an execution role, and there is also a support role, which an FPO requires. So in the governance role, it's a general body meeting, so which meets once in a year, and the executive body can be formed, which can take strategy, planning, advisory, regular advisories, and regular decision making. So once in a year, if the general body takes certain decisions, executing them becomes the responsibility of the executive body. And then to manage this, there's a board of directors who are the shareholders of the company. And from the staff, there is a CEO or the manager who manages the whole initiative. And then we have the FPO staff. So that's the structure which we created for the FPOs which we are working. And we work with nearly about 150 FPOs, 68 are formed by us, and then the rest are supported by us through other organizations. So it's about 14 years experience in managing these FPOs. And in terms of extension services or other services to the farmers, developing community resource persons, farmers who are actually practicing production or processing or marketing input production. So use them as resource persons, which becomes much easier. And also focus on local entrepreneurs. If we can identify local entrepreneur, we can build their skills and then link them to the farm producer organizations. And two important support functions which is required is the mobilization of people. Second is about capacity building, forward and backward linkages. And to do this, two of the important innovations we tried out. One is a farmer service center. So the farmer service center can be run by an FPO or it could be run by an entrepreneur. So mainly they offer all the support services which are required by the farmers. So we identified 6 important services any farmer or any producer requires. One is about training and advisory. So training on sustainable production, surveillance and farm advisories, problem diagnostics if somebody faces with a problem. So that's one area. Second area is access to loan and insurance, particularly the credit for crop production, as well as credit for buying any other long-term assets like tractors or bullocks or any other thing, or taking up any other livelihood activities. And inputs, so access to inputs becomes very important. So one of the key thing we tried is at the farmer cooperatives level or farmer service center level, inputs can be made available. So it could be seeds, it could be bio inputs, it could be implements, tools, all these are made available. The whole idea is also about creating a circular economy where certain cooperatives produces some seeds. So across cooperatives whom we work, we build a kind of circular economy where one cooperative markets their produce to other cooperatives. Some produces bio inputs and others can get access to that. So it's a kind of network which we work on. So input sales, most of the seeds inputs are available from the farmer cooperatives themselves. And very importantly, custom hiring centers for providing services and farm implements is very important, because today across the country, if you take majority of the tractors are in 2 states. Majority of the time, nearly about 83% of the tractors in India are in just 2 states. Punjab and Haryana, and they're not used properly. So obviously you cannot use to the maximum capacity because everybody has, or in fact everybody has more than required in a village. And in many of the places we have seen in the last few years, when the government schemes started offering these big machines, they are again having problems because there are too many. Kind of thing. We made a study earlier in Krishna district of Gudivada block, we have seen that there are too many of these harvesters. So like that, many machines, if you look at across the country, they're ill-distributed, they're not distributed properly. So what we try to do is to create custom hiring centers where farmers, instead of owning them, they can actually hire the services. And similarly, many times skilled labor are not available, say for harvesting or for doing any of these activities. So skilled labor services for harvesting, we tried for vegetables and mangoes in some of the FPOs in Vikarabad. So like that, custom hiring services can help farmers to move on to getting better services. And Kerala had a very good example in terms of what they call it as green army, where labor are organized into entrepreneurs, and then farm machines are given to them to offer these as a service. So those kind of new innovations can help. Similarly, market linkages, both in terms of to have a better market access, traceability, quality management, connecting to buyers, aggregation, grading, storage, all these are very critical. So we try to create all these through the farmer service centers. And another very important thing is about agriculture cannot sustain on its own, and it certainly requires support from the government. So government repeatedly comes up with various support services. Say, if you look at PM Ksan is a scheme which is available, or credit is a scheme, insurance is a scheme, pensions are a scheme. So like that, there are a number of schemes which are available, and compensations in case of natural calamities. But many times access is very difficult. So we try to create access to these entitlements easy for the farmer. So FPO plays an important role in creating this access. And if FPO or the farmer service center has to provide these support services, they have to access these services from various players, because all this knowledge or all this support is not available from one organization. So if you look at extension services, rural enterprises as a service, financial services, input services, quality assurance, government services and entitlements, market services, legal services for legal compliances. So all these may not be available from one organization. So all these has to be collectivized and offered to the farmers through one stop solution as the farmer service center. So that's what is the effort we are trying to make. And then collectivize farmers organizations also into federations. So the kind of federations we tried out is at the village level, farmers are organized into groups. So they could be farmer field school groups, or there could be PGS groups, so participatory guarantee system in organic certification, or there could be joint liability groups which are formed for accessing loans, or there could be an SHG groups. So whatever groups, primary groups which are existing in the village, they're all coming together, and at a cluster level an FPO is formed. And while there is a cluster level FPO is formed, at district level, we are trying to create federations of these FPOs, because in each district we have about 15-20 FPOs. So if there's 15-20 FPOs can come together, and they can have collectively integrated processing facilities, technical support unit, market unit, instead of every FPO having all these facilities. It becomes extremely difficult, because many of the processing units which we have seen set up across the FPOs, they're lying idle, and then they use hardly for 2-3 months in a year, because they don't have access to working capital, or they don't have enough of produce. So an integrated processing facilities which have all the processing facilities at one place, along with the storage and packing, will help to run these very efficiently. And similarly, each FPO may not be able to which may not be affordable to have technical support unit. So to have a extension staff, and to have quality assurance team, to have financial team, this could become very difficult. So it could be at a federation level, and then they can provide it as a service to the FPO. So that FPO can be run by a CEO and one accountant. So 1 or 2 staff can run the FPO, and other support services come from the federation. And marketing, again, local market, domestic market, international market, all these can be done at through a marketing team at the district level. So this is created at a district level or a between 2-3 districts, we can have business development area identified, and the federation can be created over there, which have all these support services. And the support unit also looks at branding and then bringing in innovations into production and then forward backward linkages. There are a number of financial support schemes available. You'll hear in detail from Rambabu. So there's a grant from NABARD called NABARD Produce Fund, and then there's also PODF, which is a Producer Organization Development Fund, and there's a new scheme to promote 10,000 FPOs. And Department of Agriculture, Horticulture have different schemes across the country. Credit can be accessed from Ksan, the NBFCs, the non-banking financial institutions like Samunnati, Ananya, Jai Kisan, and many others. And then commercial banks now, it also being made mandatory for the commercial banks to offer loans to FPOs, and this is also brought under the priority sector lending. So it becomes much easy to access the loans. And then Government of India has announced a new policy scheme to farm 10,000 FPOs by 23-24. So another 2 years from now. So around 10,000 FPOs being formed, and with a total outlay of 6,866 crores. So that's a whole plan. And then these FPOs, some important feature is about to organize these FPOs, cluster-based business development organizations are identified, CBBOs. So under this, CSA is also forming about 48 FPOs as CBBOs with various agencies. And these CBBOs are identified in the states, and then they provide this support, and then they do the feasibility study, they do the support for establishing for 3 years, and then so what support is available, etc. Rambabu will talk about that. And very important in this is there is a national level project management unit which monitors this entire thing, and there is a new ministry is formed to coordinate these entire activities, and now Amit Shah is heading this ministry. And as part of this, it's also about 1,000 organic FPOs which are formed with the state and national level federations. I think that becomes very important. We look at, there is a targeted approach to farm FPOs which are into organic production as well. And there is also schemes available. And then Government of India also has modified the definition of micro and small and medium enterprises, MSME. There is a definition change. So earlier, you're a micro enterprise only if investment is less than 25 lakhs. Now it is 1 crore. So it has been enhanced to 1 crore. And so up to 1 crore, you are still considered as a micro enterprise. And there is a new scheme which is available now for micro food entrepreneurs. You will hear details about it. And till you reach about 100 crores, you are still considered as MSME, which is quite a good definition, and then you'll have a lot of support to make this forward. And then I'm not getting into the details of financial support services available. But what I will talk about is the kind of support which CSA offers to the FPOs. And so the basic support services we are offering are extension services, business planning, financial linkages, market linkages, and legal compliances. So these are offered to the FPOs as a basic support services. And we also do add-on services like the entrepreneurship development for seed production, bio input production, livestock production, food processing, either for the individuals or the groups within the FPO. So group enterprises and individual enterprises are promoted. And we also offer organic certification as for the quality management. So organic certification, CSA is also a PGS certifying body. So we also do this certification. Certification is for farms, wild collections, processing facilities, farm inputs. And on the FPO management, we also have softwares which were built so that it becomes much easy to manage. So we have an ERP system which is developed. I'll show you how it works, and then how it helps in members management and inventory management, account management, reporting. So it's a one-stop solution for an FPO to manage itself. We also run a helpline called Ksan Mitra, where anyone can call and then get support on any of the issues, not only on production, but also marketing or accessing government support services, etc. We have set up a website called FPO Hub, fpohub.com, where any of these FPOs can have access to inputs, and they can also showcase the produce which they can sell. So there's a marketplace with a complete website called fpohub.com. You can get all the details over there. And we also offer courses on Ksan Business School. It's a season-long approach where we train farmers and the board members to understand business. So we also train individuals who want to move into the positions of CEOs of FPO. So to run FPO, what kind of planning is required, what kind of skill is required, what kind of support services are required. So all these are put together, and then we developed a course, we call it as Ksan Business School. And it is based on a participatory designing and a problem solving approach. So during the season running, in real time running of these FPOs, they learn about this one by doing the things. And we also have developed, in addition to the FPO management, we have developed an entire package of tools called Ecrishi. So there's a in production, management, marketing, and there are a number of tools which are available. We call it as Ecrishi. It's a plug and play platform for managing the entire supply chain. So ecrishi.in, you can see more details here. And the content, most of the content is free for use. So many of these applications which are available are free for use. And if any one of you want to partner in terms of offering any additional services, you are welcome. So it has a multi-functionality with single login, and it is available on mobiles, computers. So you can integrate with any of the other solutions which are available. So coming to this ERP system, which I mentioned, its application is called Smart Co-op. It has various modules for managing the membership projects, manufacturing, and then the inventory management, knowledge management, certification. They can have a marketplace for point of sale, the legal compliances, project compliances, accounts, financial management, data analytics. So all these are integrated for any company to perform whatever support is required. All are integrated into one application. It is called Smart Co-op, and it helps actually an FPO to manage their entire data. So if the staff who are running the FPO can do the day-to-day work reporting properly, there is no need to any additional effort to be made. And at the end of the month, on 20th of every month, if they have to file a GST, they can just print out and they can directly pay the GST and from the application itself. And they want to submit a report to ROC, or if they want to file with a income tax department, they can simply print out. Or even if it is a project report for NABARD or NCDC or SFSC or any other donor agency, the reports also can be customized. So with just one click, they can produce reports, they can file taxes, they can file annual reports, and they can do entire business analytics much easy. So that's the ERP system which is developed, and it is now deployed by 3 major networks, cooperative federations in India. So in Sahaja, which is promoted by CSA, is using it. Benishan, which is promoted by the SERP, Society for Elimination of Rural Poverty, Government of Telangana, is using it. And Vritti in Bangalore is using it. So there are a number of organizations which are coming forward to use it. And it becomes much easier to manage these entire operations. And we also support transition towards organic production. So people who are interested, and then FPOs which are interested, we provide a bunch of support services where these FPOs can move into organic production. So we offer extension services. We support farming of bio enterprises which produce inputs. We also provide diagnostic services from soil to pests and diseases to everything. So if farmers faces any problem, they can approach, and then we can provide these support services. And then we help in setting up food processing units, we create market linkages, and then we also offer PBS certification. It's all organic hub. And then if there are any entrepreneurs who want to buy produce from the FPOs, they can directly buy from this. So it is also available as part of this FPO hub. This is the Pestoscope, which is an application where you can identify the pest and disease problems in any crop. And so by visuals, you can identify the problem and then find a solution to manage. And if you cannot identify the problem, because it could be very confusing if more than one problem exists together. So then you can actually take a picture. So the moment you take a picture, it identifies the location, and from the location, it identifies the soil type and weather conditions there. And then it sends to the central team, and then we get back to you with a solution. So this too helps in terms of having access to better knowledge in managing pests and diseases without using chemicals. And this is free service which is available from Center for Sustainable. This is a set of biolabs which we established, where the inoculums of biofertilizers and biopesticides are centrally made and then given to the entrepreneurs, where the entrepreneurs can produce and then supply to the farmers. So it's a two-level bio input production which is done, and more efficient because they are liquid biofertilizers. So I already mentioned about PGS Council. CSA is a PGS regional council, and we offer PGS certification across the country in all the states. We certify individual producers, group of producers, area certification for annual crops or perennial crops, livestock, beekeeping, wild collections, and processing and handling. And typically, this is the kind of collection centers we promote. So the collection centers, when they collect produce from the farmers, they collect, grade, and then distribute to the distribution centers. But when they are collecting, they already have the records in the ERP system, so they know which farmer from which farm the produce is coming in. So every crate of vegetables or every packet which is being traded from these FPOs can be traced back to the producer group which has been produced it. So farmer service centers, like I mentioned earlier, so there are two sizes of two different sizes which we tried out. So one is a very small farmer service center like this, which has a digital classroom as well. So like we are doing this webinar, we do regular correspondence, regular trainings, regular reviews with FPOs through these digital classrooms. And we also have input selling, output buying, and then custom hiring services for the machines, which are part of this one. So this is a small 600 square feet space one. And we also have a much bigger one. So in Vikarabad, we have one which is quite a big one. So it's about 5,000 square feet service center, which is available, which has more farm machines. And then it also offered packaged services in terms of sowing, in terms of harvesting, in terms of picking, and then it also offers skilled labor as a service. So we can, depending on the investment which one an FPO can make or an individual entrepreneur can make, different sizes of these enterprises can be put in. So in terms of food processing, opportunities are there for primary processing, secondary processing, and tertiary processing. And we can try out, so CSA has expertise in fruits and vegetables, grains and cereals, oilseeds, milk. Now we are working with meat and poultry. So we can provide support services for any of these things. And I mentioned about the integrated processing facilities. So this is one such facility which is available in Bodam in Vijayanagaram district. So similar kind of things are there at in Kurnool, and then we are setting up one in Jangaon district, and then we are going to do it in many other places. So these have all machines together, so they can store, process, pack all the products together, so that it runs full time, and then it can be made very efficient. We also have developed technologies for solar power processing. So what you see here is colors extracted from the fruits and vegetables and leaves. We do color extraction. We also do solar drying of tomatoes, and then we do fruit bars, and then so number of other technologies are there. So we also use solar power to generate power, and then power is used to make to run machines. So banana fiber extraction, and then further processing we have in Kadapa, and then we also have cotton ginning in Kurnool. So likewise, we are doing it in different places. And we also do a lot of value addition, and then we do regular trainings in terms of doing more than 60 products. At the local level, entrepreneurs or groups can value add, and then they can sell the products directly to the consumers. And we have several federations, like I mentioned. One such federation is Sahaja Yoga, which is a producer company which directly retails organic produce in Hyderabad and Visakhapatnam. So we have retail stores where we sell these products. So it's India's first organic retail chain owned by farmer producer organization. We have 23 cooperatives and then 5 retail stores right now. And we are also franchising it to others in other cities. And like Vinyasa has mentioned, we started Grameen Academy, which is an online portal where trainings and capacity building is done. And Grameen Academy is a network of institutions we are trying to build, which have centers of excellence. We have agroecology farm schools run by master farmers. We also have farmer service centers, like I mentioned, and then there's an online portal. So centers of excellence are of various kinds, and then we are partnering with various organizations. We are setting up 2 very important centers of excellence in the next 6 to 7 months. We are going to have a center of excellence for organic and natural farming coming up in Ujividu, and 1 center of excellence on farm producer organizations coming up in Mahabubnagar district of Telangana. So these are all the works which we are doing on FPOs. This year, we won the Best FPO Enabler Award. This is a kind of work which we are trying to do. And anyone who is interested to know more about our work or want any support or be part of the ecosystem to support FPOs, they can always approach us. These are the emails and phone numbers which are available. These are the websites. Thank you very much. I stop here. And any queries can take in terms to get clarifications, but discussions we'll have towards the end of the session, because another 10-15 minutes, Rambabu will talk about the schemes and support services available. Yes, any questions, please?
There is one question in the chat
Yes,
box.
I'm seeing that question. Do FPO members should be a full-time farmer having Pattadar passbook? If I can take my example, I'm an IT professional and from a farmer family, have agricultural lands and not a full-time farmers. And see, you can become a member of an FPO if you have a Pattadar passbook or a farmer, practicing farmer, and you cannot become the board member. So while registration, they're mandating to have a Pattadar passbook, and later on we can add you, you can get added to the FPO, but it's a discretion of the FPO board. I think that is there. You don't need to be full-time, but you need to be a cultivator there. So by cultivator, I mean who takes responsibility in planning, implementation, and who bears the risk of production. I think that's what I would say. And you can help them in terms of management. You can also help them in terms of setting up systems in place, and then you can help them in crop planning. So all these you can provide as a support. Yes. Any more clarifications?
Ashok Kumar, you have raised your hand. You can ask your question.
Good evening, Dr. Ram. My question is like in Punjab, what poppies and CVOs are doing is that they are taking 10 farmers as directors, and FPO is getting registered. Afterwards, they are being shown something big dreams like 18 lakh funding is there. So most of the FPOs are a failure. They reach only to 20 or 20 to 50 members only. So what we are trying to do is for sensitizing farmers, around 800 farmers, as per Atma guidelines, also some FIG, CIG, this type of activity we are doing. So how are you approaching? Means it is to start with the 10 directors and then finding the member farmers, or what should be the ideal proposition for it?
No, see, the 2 ways. So we do 2 ways. One is about first organizing farmers into groups. So all our initial FPOs are based on all our initial formation of FPOs are based on the farmer field schools, which we are already organizing. So they are formed into cooperatives, so farmer interest groups, or farmer cooperative groups, and then the groups are formed into FPOs. In the new areas where we are trying to form the FPOs, we go by parallel action of getting the enrollment, and also in terms of registering the board. So 10 farmers are formed into, first brought together, and then an FPO is registered, and then we start enrolling. And after 3 months, we will have the first BOD meeting where they can re-elect the board of directors. So that's how we are doing. And then we target in terms of first year, we reach about to 200 people. By second year, we can reach out to about 500 people. So like that, there is a incremental change, incremental growth, which will be planned. And looking at the performance, more people come and join. So that's how we are trying to work on. And we follow a federation model where primary cooperatives look at only aggregating farmers and aggregating produce. Up to aggregation of produce, they work. And from there, dealing with the external world in terms of marketing, etc., is taken up by the federation. So that helps in terms of primary FPOs do efficiently. Because many times what we have seen is that FPOs do not perform better because they are unable to deliver the support services. Third important, most of our FPOs move into organic production or at least pesticide free. And that makes the product have a demand in the market as well. So selling becomes easier. So if you have the same product which is sold by many other farmers, probably competing in the market can become very difficult. So that's where we need to figure out what is the USP of the group or the FPO which you want to sell. Because many times people think brand name is a name. Brand name is not a name; it's an identity. So how how the organization is identified, how the produce is identified is something which is very important. So what is that speciality you offer is what we need to figure out. If that is done, then FPOs become viable.
One more question, the CEO, selection of CEO and the accountant. This should be selected by directors, or we have to take consent of CBBO?
So what we are doing is the CBBO takes the decision initially, the first recruitment. Then they are subjected to the management of the board. So board takes the later the decision. So initially they are all selected by the CBBO. Because the board is not very capable initially.
This is they have made it a business, like they got the money for registration, sensitization. Then they have a CEO who is the CEO of more than one organization.
That is, I think,
find.
No, I think that is that you can make a complaint, and then that is not allowed actually. So one cannot be more than cannot be a CEO of more than one, and CEO is an exclusive position, and particularly if it is part of a project and paid, it should be exclusive. So one cannot be a staff of an NGO and or a staff of a consultancy organization and also CEO. I think it is not allowed. You can make a complaint on that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. There is a question. Are you suggesting soil restoration in shallow soils? Yes, sir. And in fact, we are going to do a session on this the upcoming week. On the 8th of October, we are going to have a session on rejuvenating soils. So we are going to announce it. So we are going to have a session on that. Certainly, people who are interested on that, you can join. So from now, every Friday, we are going to have a session. So if there are no more questions, I request Rambabu to present the schemes and support available for the FPOs.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Actually, sir, when you said that the biggest issue in FPO is getting an access to the capital.
Yes.
For an FPO to run.
Yes.
So when like there are a lot of schemes and there are a lot of funders are there, NABARD is there, so many implementing agencies are there. Still, why, like, where is the gap that why capital access is?
See, the gap comes in terms of, any of these offers as part of the loans which are available from any of these agencies is linked to the share capital. So if individual members are putting in 1,000 rupees or 2,000 rupees as share capital, even if government gives a loan of 5 times of that, maximum is which they can offer is about 5 times. So if individual, so at an FPO level, if there is a share capital of 10 lakhs, they get a loan of 50 lakhs. If they have a share capital of 5 lakhs, they get only 25 lakhs. But if you look at from an individual member's point of view, so if I'm putting 2,000 rupees, the share capital is maximum about 10,000 rupees. And how much produce can be bought by FPO with that 10,000 capital? So it's not adequate. So adequate access is something which is very critical to have. So if they have to do any value addition, if they have to store or even process, pack and sell, farmers look for immediate money. In certain areas, warehouse receipt schemes are available, but the problem is about you need to take your produce and then keep it in an identified warehouse, and then you cannot do the processing. So now the latest amendment to this is coming up, where the FPO's own warehouse can also be identified as for warehouse receipt scheme, but again you need to meet the standard. So you need investment to be made to construct that. So these are all interrelated problems which farmers always face when they are to run the FPO.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
So yes, we can do the next session.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you,
I'm
Ramu
here.
sir.
You can. Yeah, I'm here.
Yes.
And then you can.
So as Ramu sir said, our next session is by Rambabu sir.
Yeah.
Sir, are you ready with your
Yeah,
presentation?
ready.
Yes, you can start this.
Yeah, good
share
evening,
screen.
one and all. Myself, Rambabu, working with CSA, supporting for FPOs. Vinyasaji, my voice is audible, no?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you. It's visible, no?
Yes, sir, it is.
Yeah. For promoting the FPOs, support.
So can you put it on full screen, please?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Under NABARD, we have different schemes for FPOs promotion. In first 2000, before 2018, we have produce fund for promotion of FPOs, and 2018 onwards, we have PODFID fund is there for promotion of FPOs, and NABARD is supporting for promotion of FPOs under FSPF also. It is own funds being allocated by the NABARD only. And beyond this, Government of India is announced 10,000 promotion of 10,000 FPOs under Central Sector Scheme. Now the major implementing agencies are throughout India: NABARD, SFAC, NCDC, NAFED, and NRLM. So these are the main implementing partners. The promotion of 10,000 FPOs in India. For PODFID and produce funds, NABARD is supporting for FPOs 11.44 lakhs over a period of 3 years. These funds utilize like registration purpose, membership mobilization, business plans and CEO salary, capacity building part, and facilitation charges. It is initially sanctioned 11.44 lakhs, but additionally the NABARD is supporting for their, based on the performance, they are extending their support for 4th year and 5th year with the supporting of 5.2 lakh, and also giving 5 lakh business development assistance also for the as a BDA development activities purpose. Under the central sector scheme for FPO support, we have over a period of 3 years, 18 lakhs rupees is supporting for registration and membership mobilization, business plan purpose, and CEO salary and capacity building purpose. The amount is increased around 7 lakh rupees for over a period of 3 years. In this, we have paying CEO salary and also giving one support accounts bookkeeping person support also. And additional support to FPOs. Equity grant, we can FPO can avail up to 15 lakhs maximum per FPO. It may be based on the depends on the share capital which is mobilizing from the shareholders. And also we can avail credit linkage up to 2 crores without collateral security. It depends on the business plans and also bargaining power and commodities, and also mostly depends on the share capital amount. And support services in the central sector scheme, support services schemes from the line departments also it has involved throughout it. The central sector scheme FPOs are implementing and facilitating supporting by the we have every districts, we have district level monitoring committees. NABARD DDM is the member secretary of the DMC, and most of the in the DMC the line department district level head who is anchoring, that person is also the member of the DMC meetings. And through the line department schemes, those line department schemes which we have, they are supporting to the routing from the FPOs only in wherever FPOs are implementing in that areas. And NAB Kisan credit linkage is giving 5 to 15 times on share capital amount. It's an it may depends on the share capital amount from up to maximum for member we are taking 2000 rupees. Why? Because we may be, as per act we can take as per 5% of the maximum authorized share capital shares, but NAB Kisan equity grant is supporting for only for 2000 per person only. So for the member encouragement we are taking 2000 rupees per person share capital amount. And online marketing linkages and export marketing linkages also is the additional supports from the under center sector scheme. And also MSME, which is sir already explained regarding this in micro enterprises, small and medium enterprises, investments 25 lakhs and services for investment 10 lakhs rupees. Like this is already explained about this, sir. And agri infrastructure fund which is supporting to the extending FPOs, it depends on over a period of up to 2020-21 to 2020-25 24-25 cluster based approach. It's for extending for processing units and agri infrastructure storage facility warehouse construction, like that we can avail for this. And this amount also some of the 30 to 35% is subsidy on agri infrastructure fund. We can increase for this sorting, grading, processing and packaging storage purpose. We can utilize this amount. And also this one who can take this support individual micro units, and it can be FPO, and also individual entrepreneurs can also avail this equity grant support, and up to subsidies linked around 35% maximum with is 10 lakh rupees. And supporting to FPOs and SHG cooperatives also around 4 lakh rupees we can avail. And also with this convergence program also with the line department schemes are implementing through routing to FPOs in FPO areas. Under central sector scheme, before the central sector scheme FPOs, we don't have the convergence program, much convergence program, and line departments involvement is less than. Whoever those NGOs are rapport with the local line department people, they can avail that schemes only. But now under central sector scheme, it is a mandatory to routing the schemes. Every scheme should route in, as part of FPO platform. Yeah, thank you. This is a small presentation regarding the financial support which is providing under PODFID and also produce and central sector scheme FPOs related.
Thank you so much, Rambabu Garu. Does anyone has any questions? They can ask now. Since we still have time, so you can clear your doubts here.
Good
Sir,
evening.
all this funding, is there any condition that FPO is like having a condition for 300 members?
Yes.
So
Membership.
the FPO will be eligible after it is having 300 members. Say if we are having started FPO registered in 2021, and by 2022 we got 150 or say 200 members. So will we be eligible to get benefits of these credits and funding?
After 300 members only, sir, you can get
Yeah.
support. Equity grant
Okay.
support will get after 300 members and 3 lakh rupees of in initial stage.
Okay, so before that, there is no benefit we can take from government schemes or for funding or credit.
Yeah,
only
It is 300 is a
staff
minimum condition.
line
No, only
department schemes we can avail.
and also staff support is also available.
Okay.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Yes.
Myself, Shekhar Babu. First of all, thank you for this initiation. Really, I would like to say thanks to Dr. Ramanjan sir, who has given access to me to visit recently 3 of FPOs managed by CSA. A really wonderful job you are all doing. I met the farmers and the lives have been changed actually. I feel like this is the way forward. This is the only way to improve the lives of farmers actually, FPOs. Okay. But Phil, sir, this has to be, scale up actually. What are the plans actually for the future in Andhra and Telangana particularly? Is there at ground root level, are you going to increase more FPOs formation and all? Really, it's a very good job you guys are doing. Just would like to say the plans for future.
So we are, like I mentioned earlier, we are supporting nearly about 250 FPOs in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, and many more may come in. So we are trying to create a kind of network about this. So that's a FPO hub is a support ecosystem we are building. So where various players who bring in different skills. Say, for example, CSA is very strong in organic farming and then marketing side, whereas somebody else who has a strong background on financial management is joining us to offer those support services. Likewise, processing, likewise IT. So like that, we are trying to build an ecosystem which can offer different support services, like you are doing in terms of creating awareness about this one. So we are trying to create a network where people can come together and do this one. That is one thing we are doing. Second, we are starting a course, 1 year course for CEOs, so that people who are already CEOs and also those who want to become CEOs. So we are trying to offer a course, regular course, where people can learn, and then there is a certificate course. It will be offered in 2-3 locations in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, and they will be absorbed into the FPOs. So that is the second thing we are trying to do. Third, we develop a lot of IT tools which helps people to manage their FPO easily. So like I mentioned about the ERP system can at least take the 2 people's workload. So it becomes much easier. And it also creates a marketplace where people can sell directly. FPO selling directly to the consumers. So with the same Sahaja model, we are trying to replicate across these areas. So these are the few initiatives from our side, and we'll be open for partnerships with anybody else if they want to offer any of these support services additionally as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
There is a question here. What are the main challenges in terms of capital, production planning, management of business, marketing, governance? So one of the key challenges, like I mentioned, is about human resource capacity. So building that capacity is something which is very, very important. Many times what has happened in the last 5 years is that most of these FPOs are promoted by organizations which never had experience or expertise in farming FPOs. And so obviously they couldn't build the skills. So many times they used the organizational staff as the CEOs of the FPOs also. So that is something which has happened. Second major challenge was agriculture itself is in deep crisis today. So as you have seen, farmers are agitating all across, there is a problem. So in that situation, expecting that farmers can solve their own problem is also very difficult, because there's more than 32 departments which are supposed to provide all these support services, and they all failed. And then expecting that one institution run by one CEO will solve all the problems is also far-fetched. So it also requires a kind of extended support from the government side, which is now slowly changing, but that is something which is also very, very important. Third, very important is for any business to succeed. So one of the major wrong notion which many of the promoting organizations have is that by forming an FPO, we can get into the market. You can get into the market only if you have a good product. So market can only add value if you have a good product. So if you are not producing your product, a good product and efficiently, you are not going to be in the market. So if your cost of cultivations continue to be the same, you're going to use the same amount of water and same amount of chemicals, obviously you are not going to find place in the market. So you have to compete with any other general farmer. So you need to also figure out what is that additional value you are going to create. So these can help farmers to reach out and do efficient business. So these are the major challenges. And again, individual FPOs cannot survive. So obviously federations are important. So how FPOs can come together, collectivize is something which is very, very important. So there is also problems earlier faced in terms of, say, one organization promotes one or two FPOs and they want to hold them in their hands. So that is control them to. So these problems do exist. So now with the new models coming up where federations can be created and then large FPOs are formed, I think most of these problems could be addressed. I won't say it will solve, at least we can get over initial blocks which we had. Yeah, any more questions?
Anyone? Any questions?
So we have a society registered under the 1816 Societies Act.
Okay.
So it's been registered since 2013. So can it be converted to CBBO also?
No. So you can convert it into an FPO as a producer organization. So CBBO is a NGO or an organization which provides support. CBBO is a support organization. FPO, you can convert from cooperative to producer company, or for this cooperative also you can get support from the NCDC. You can approach NCDC. NCDC exclusively provides support for the cooperatives. They have several schemes and then you can access NCDC. But if you want to convert into producer organization, you can also do that. Both are available. Possibilities exist.
Yes, yeah. Any more questions?
So if there are no more questions, we can conclude here, Vinyasa. And
yes,
anyone who want to get back to us, you can always get back to us. So we will give our, you have our email IDs, and on the website also you can always connect to us. And not only on these FPOs, but any of these areas of work which we are doing, if you want to partner or if you want support, you can always get back to us. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, sir. And thank you everyone for your time.
Yeah.
Have a nice evening.
No, thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Thank you.